Hi there, my name is Rob, and I want to talk about the price too high, the cost of Australia's approach to asylum seekers. I wrote this in 2009. I've tried many a times to try and put it through papers and the local paper, and it hasn't made its way through. So I'm going to put it on the internet now. Now, it took me probably 18 months to get all this together, and I finished it in 2009, so say 2007 I started. And let's just talk about Australia's immigration policy. It's dangerous, it's disastrous, proceeding as if there is no balance of payment problem, no foreign debt, and no geographical or environmental constraints to population growth. Continued immigration will finally and irreversibly alter the natural and urban environment, economic and viability and attitudes and culture of our nation. I'm now talking about Australia, but it probably relates to England, America, New Zealand, wherever the immigrants are now travelling to. The Australian people have been consulted on or given their consent to the interwoven policies of immigration and multiculturalism. It is now time for Australians to demand their democratic rights, reclaim their sovereignty, and demand a say in the future of their nation. Australians want immigration drastically reduced to zero net. That is, out immigration numbers should merely replace those permanently leaving Australia each year, historically running between 20 to 30,000. Now don't forget, this is in 2007-2008 when I wrote it. At this policy, the institutionalised, publicly funded multiculturalism should be scrapped. Bear with me, punters. Australians care about their country, and we want to pass our heritage to our children and their children. We want to preserve our Australian identity. We stress that migrants already in Australia are welcome. What we are against is further immigration and the effect this is now having on social harmony. The Premier of New South Wales, Bob Carr, was right when he said the nation can't handle any more people. Sydney is bursting at the seams. The debate ought to be about the carrying capacity of our continent. A continent that has lousy soils, fragile vegetation, and depleted and degraded river systems. To cope with our massive immigration problem, which has produced the fastest population growth in Australia, in any OECD, we are spending $15 billion per annum. Each year, Australia must build the equivalent of a city the size of Geelong in Victoria, with all its infrastructure and social services, just to cope for 1 year's immigration intake. Alright. Every migrant in Australia must be provided with accommodation, food, transport, job, schools, pensions, hospitals, water, electricity, roads, sewerage, universities, and all the basic necessities of life. This has been a major factor in bankrupting Australia and has given us a foreign debt currently standing in 2007, 170 billion, with a current account deficit of about 2 billion per month. At the moment is racing a lot higher. It is no surprise that we have the highest per capita foreign debt in the world. Okay? Migrants want to go. I'll get a bit of a problem with my computer. Migrants in Australia must be provided. We've talked about that. Paul Keating was right when he said in his maiden speech to Parliament in 1970, "It is time we considered the enormous cost of bringing migrants into this country." Even the Pro-Immigration Bureau of Immigration and Population Research could not find any economic benefits from our immigration program, and their conclusion came from a study which was biased by omitting the enormous infrastructure costs mentioned above. Too few people recognise or question the corrosive influence internationalisation of our economy has had on our society, and the part that immigration is playing in that process, the breakdown of unionism, the consequent deterioration of awards, working conditions, the predatory nature of foreign investment, ownership, and the destruction of manufacturing, dropping off tariffs and consequent employment, increased imports with associated increased foreign debt, the privatisation of publicly owned schemes and dual citizenship. All of these contribute to our diminishing capacity to shape our national destiny as we are colonised by a deregulated global capacity. Bipartisanship ensures these policies will further foreign takeover towards a point of no return. If we cannot stop immigration, we will never stop the rest. Employment. Let's talk about employment. The country in debt must decrease all spending. This means less jobs and higher unemployment. We now have 2 million unemployed, and to add 100,000 migrants each year is insanity. You must be mad in the head. These people can only take jobs from the existing pool or join the dole queue. 40% of all immigrants over the last 5 years have joined the long-term unemployment queues. A similar percentage of our own youth are also unable to get a job. Okay, to create a new job in Australia requires a capital outlay of $150,000 per job. With a foreign debt of $170 billion, we are in no position to create new jobs. We have spent our scarce funds on immigration-induced growth rather than on plant, equipment, training and jobs in export and import replacing industries. Right. It is morally indefensible to import skilled labour into Australia while we are doing it. We are doing it right now, 457, whilst not training our own youth and our skilled labour remains unemployed. Yet both Liberal and Labor regard importing skilled migrants as a way to increase the labour market. Well, I call them idiots. I don't know what you think about it, but we have now the defence in Australia. In 1987, government policy paper on defence of Australia stated, no population increase is necessary for defence. So that argument of increasing the immigration intake for defence is hogwash. Today's defence needs require a strong economy and sophisticated, expensive military infrastructure. We need a professional, well-trained, mobile, technically advanced force with access to sophisticated weapon systems, a cohesive and united society, not a divided multicultural society, is what is needed for our defence. Okay, we'll talk about humanitarianism now. In a world of 95 million extra people per annum with 35 million refugees, well, it's probably a lot more now, our immigration program can only help 0.1% of these people, and then only at the expense of our quality of life, environment, foreign aid not immigration, is a logical way for humanitarian relief. Only genuine refugees in fear of their lives should be granted temporary entry into Australia and then return to their country of origin when the danger is past. Economic illegal immigrants, whether arriving in leaky boats or through our airports and falsely claiming refugee status, should immediately be deported. It's cheaper to send them back by plane than to spend 150 to 200,000 to put them into refugee camps for processing. Now, the health. Our hospital waiting lists are evidence the fact that we're already not coping. The immigration debate still goes on. Many new diseases are now being introduced into Australia. TB, hepatitis B from Asia will become a greater and greater problem. We're already seeing 1,000 deaths per annum from hepatitis B, and rates of TB contact in inner city schools of 25%. The government admits it does not have the resources to immunise those at risk of hepatitis B or to provide the necessary TB screening procedures. This is woeful. These sort of things should not be happening. It's like, you know, it's all to do with overpopulation. And that's the elephant in the room, right? Overpopulation. Is the choice school or the dole? There is a shortage of real education producing real skills for real jobs. The preferential admission of children of migrants to universities under the unfair LOTE, language other than English, bonus ensures Australian children will be disadvantaged, and the government will create an educated ethnic elite to take over positions of power and control in Australia. What do you think about that? The media. Now, the media play a big role. They're either on the side of the papers or the people, right? Or the magazines. They will do what they are told to do. Okay? So, let's talk about the media. Now, the media communication on immigration and multiculturalism is severely censored. The media presenting what they want to know and think. Be your own judge and do not rely on the flawed views of journalists whose job opportunities rely on editors and media owners who are part of the pro-immigration lobby. They want them here. I don't know why they want them here. Right? We understand the desire for migrants to maintain their culture in Australia, for Australians have exactly the same desire to maintain our culture, history and traditions of Australia. And we see no reason why a migrant culture should be maintained when it is at the expense of ours. The Australian culture is unique and we shall fight to defend it. Our culture emphasises a balance of life, free of excessive striving and materialism, and has created an attractive society as in the USA, Canada and New Zealand. Australia has incorporated the best features of British culture, the balance of law, freedom and order, separation of public services and politics, conflict solving by debate and not by force. Violence and insurrection, tolerance and minorities, economic opportunity, fortitude in war without militarism, and provision of social services. We have our distinctive art, music, theatre, literature, sport and film with achievements in science, medicine, social welfare and a unique quality of life. Our culture developed from our history, our common memories, stories and traditions. Australia led the way with the secret ballot, the 8-hour day votes for women, invalid, widow and AIDS pensions for all, strong trade unions, the arbitration system and the basic wage. Our culture embodies the values of egalitarianism and mateship. It rejects excessive authority and believes in a fair go, admiration for the battler, and a belief in the individual. I am being serious. There should be a qualifying period of 5 years for naturalisation to occur, and for the first generation who create a crime should be deported forthwith to their mother country. Also, if they wish to stay, then they must give up their other passport. They can't have the best of both worlds. Right. Currently I was seeing our culture replaced by a new culture for Australia called multiculturalism. Now it's not new, it's been around for a long time. But a philosophy that is far wherever in the world it has tried, such as Yugoslavia, Sri Lanka, Fiji, Bosnia, Chechnya, Rwanda, Tibet, Israel, Britain, Timor, etc. Multiculturalism also produces conflict between group rights and individual rights. The small I liberal establishment who so strongly support multiculturalism seem blind to the fact that their philosophy of individual rights will disappear under the pressure of group, ethnic and racial rights in a multicultural society. Let's talk about country Australia now, shall we? Country Australia is paying a high price for immigration, at the same time as the government cries poor and removes country services such as hospitals, post office, schools, police and railways, etc. They bring into Australia 120,000 migrants per year and provides them with all the services of the cities. How about that? You lose your post office and railways, and migrants get jobs in post office and railways. Immigration costs Australia $15 billion annually. Just imagine the services which could be provided if this $15 billion was spent in rural areas, on health, hospitals. Electorally, 1 year's migrant intake is now more important to our politicians than rural Australia, which has provided most of Australia's export income for 200 years. Most countries look after their export earners, but our government ignores, denigrates and exploits ours. Okay, now let's talk about something else. Let's have a bit of a summary on this, what we've talked about. We have a clear choice of accepting increasing immigration with a consequent exploitation of this land and a falling standard of living and the quality of life, which has happened. Living in crowded, polluted, high-density cities with overtaxed recreational areas and intercommunal tensions, and feeling like strangers in your own country. How about that? The economic consequences of an increasing foreign debt, foreign ownership and undesirable, unsustainable economic expansion will destroy any chance of maintaining the best features of Australian life as we know it. And as migrant numbers increase, there will be an escalating push for higher migrant intake, which eventually will be unstoppable. Or we can go the other way, stopping mass immigration now and attempting to live in harmony with our fragile environment, creating an economically and environmental sound, self-reliant and self-sustaining community, maintaining our quality of life and handing to the next generation a country to be cherished and free from problems of overpopulation. Now, these are the real costs that all Australians should be aware of. We now have